lecturing at the COS College, College of the Siskiyous, and at that point I was invited to lecture somewhere else, and I did, and I met this woman named Laverne who said, I don't know why I'm supposed to do this, but I'm supposed to take you to meet a man named Kenny. Now, Laverne was an 86-year-old woman, and she says, Kenny's about my age, would you come with me to meet this man? So I said, not a problem. So the following day I called her up, and I met her in town, and she took me to meet a man named Kenny, and he was living in a senior citizens development in Mount Shasta near the hospital. As we got there, Kenny answered the door, and he greeted both of us. We sat in his living room, and he sat in his chair, and we sat on the couch. And he said, Stephen, I want you to sit in front of me. So Laverne positioned the chair in front of him so that way he could see me better, because one of his eyes, he lost the vision of one of his eyes while he was working as a stuntman for Robert Conrad in the Wild Wild West TV show. He was an actor in Hollywood and in previous years, but he had a very bad accident while he was on the set doing a stunt, riding past some flames in a barn, and he lost the sight of one of his eyes. So he's showing me some of his photos of his life. He worked on a assembly line with Marilyn Monroe. They worked on the second shift before she was discovered in that drugstore in Hollywood. So he had a relationship with her before she became famous, and told me some intimate details that only someone could know if he was involved with that individual, which I find kind of impressive. But he was a spiritual and magical man who had spent probably about 20 years up with the Elizabeth Clare Prophet group in Montana, and came down with Bruce, who owns the Soul Connection in Mount Shasta, to live in Mount Shasta, because he got the call to come to Mount Shasta.
So what happened to Kenny exactly?
Well, upon hearing his story, Laverne said to Kenny, okay, do you know who Stephen is? So Kenny looked at me and then looked to his right and says, let me ask my angels, Edwin and Johnny. So I look over to my left, and I don't see anybody where he's looking. Turns back to me, he says, they tell me that you're my brother from Lemuria. So now the hair on my neck is standing up, because I didn't know I was going to get this sort of an answer. So I said, can you tell me what my name was? He says, well, you were my older brother in Lemuria. You were a shaman, and your name was Randu. So I said, what was your name, Kenny? He says, you promised not to laugh. I said, no, I'm not going to laugh. He says, my name was Kandu. You were Randu, and I was Kandu, but you were my older brother. So he said, the reason why I came to Shasta, though, is because I want to ascend, but I wanted to go into the mountain. And I have been in contact with the Dhamma, the high priest. Last year I was very sick, and I was almost at death's door. And the Dhamma asked me if I wanted to come in. And he said, no, I wanted to go in with my brother. I was waiting for you. So at this point, I'm listening to the story and trying to figure out, is this happening? I'm hearing this story. This is a interesting, story that I'm getting. So he said to me, in August, I'm waiting for another group of people to come. In August, you and I are supposed to go to Panther Meadow together, and we'll be greeted when we get there. All of a sudden, he says, standing behind you is Adama, Saint Germain, and Jesus. At that point, I was like blown away, because I look behind me, I don't see these figures, but I'm sensing the energy. And this was the third time since migrating from Washington State to Oregon to California that I heard that Saint Germain was behind my shoulder. And so now it's really got my attention, because three different people, three unrelated incidents, are telling me they see spiritual ascended masters that are with me. So now I start to see Kenny on a regular basis. I says, Kenny, I'll bring you lunch. What would you like? He goes, bring me a chocolate shake. So every other day I would go over and bring him a chocolate shake. We'd hang out. And he said to me, he said, you're going to find what you're looking for, but you've got some work to do. And he hands me a book, and it's really Louise Jones's book about the 7 sacred flames. And the book talked about raising your vibration, your spirituality. He says you need to do the work before you can enter the kingdom.